Ethan stood at the edge of the landing platform, his boots sinking slightly into the soft silver dust of the alien planet. The sky above was a swirl of deep violet and emerald, with 3 moons casting shifting shadows across the jagged mountains in the distance. He had traveled across the galaxy to this place as part of a diplomatic mission, yet already he could feel the weight of the unspoken challenge awaiting him. The aliens here tall, elegant, and covered in smooth, back-toned skin watched him with eyes that glimmered like molten gold. They were curious, cautious, and skeptical. His guide, a lithe alien named Lyra, approached silently, her long limbs moving with precision and grace. She stopped just a few feet away from him, folding her arms and tilting her head slightly. "You think you understand what you are about to do," she said, her voice smooth but carrying a sharp edge. "But no one can do that more than once." Ethan blinked. More than once. "Yes," Lyra said, her golden eyes narrowing. "The trial I speak of is dangerous. Only the strongest, the cleverest, and the bravest survive even a single attempt. And even if they do, none repeat it, not once. Not ever." Ethan smiled faintly. There was something thrilling about her tone, a mixture of warning and challenge. He had faced difficult tasks before, in simulations, in training, and even in the field during his missions. But this felt different. The stakes were higher, and the unknown was alive, almost breathing. "Then I guess I'll find out if humans can surprise you," he said. Lyra's lips twitched, almost as if she were holding back a smirk. "We shall see," she said, turning away. "The trial begins at nightfall. You will have to navigate the terrain, face creatures, solve puzzles, and endure tests that push every limit. It is not just strength that is required, but mind, body, and spirit." Ethan nodded, his heart already beating faster with anticipation. He watched as the alien crowd slowly dispersed, leaving him and Lyra alone at the edge of the platform. The sun or the nearest star was dipping below the horizon, bathing the planet in long shadows that made the mountains appear like jagged teeth. He spent the next hours preparing. He checked his equipment carefully, a compact utility belt with basic tools, a scanner to detect heat signatures and energy patterns, and a small energy knife that could cut through most obstacles. But he knew tools alone would not be enough. This challenge would require quick thinking, intuition, and sheer determination. As darkness fell, Lyra led him to the trial's entrance, a wide canyon with jagged cliffs rising on both sides. The walls of the canyon shimmered with a faint blue light, and a series of moving platforms stretched across the chasm. "The first stage," she said, pointing toward the canyon. "Cross it without falling. The platforms shift unpredictably, and some are traps. Many fail here, human. Don't underestimate it." Ethan studied the platforms. They moved in complex patterns, rising and lowering like liquid metal. Some seemed solid. Others seemed fragile, almost as if they might collapse if he stepped on them wrong. He took a deep breath and stepped forward. Feeling the first platform shift beneath his weight, his balance wavered, but he adjusted quickly. Leaning into the movement and using the tip of his energy knife as a stabilizer, step by step he moved across, feeling the rush of adrenaline sharpen every sense. One platform began to tilt dangerously, and he pivoted just in time, jumping onto a smaller, more stable surface. From the canyon's edge, Lyra's eyes followed him closely, her expression unreadable. Other aliens watched silently, whispering among themselves. None of them expected a human to cross the first stage unscathed. But Ethan's focus never wavered. As he reached the other side, he heard a low growl. He froze. From the shadows emerged a creature with 4 legs, eyes glowing red, and teeth like curved blades. It hissed, advancing toward him with unnatural speed. Ethan had faced dangerous animals before, but this was unlike anything he had encountered. He ducked behind a rock, using it as cover, and quickly analyzed the creature's movement. It was intelligent, predicting his dodges and adjusting its path. Ethan realized he couldn't outrun it forever. He needed a plan. He spotted a ledge above and tossed a small rock to the far side, triggering a falling trap that the creature lunged toward. With a swift leap, Ethan climbed the ledge and landed behind the creature. It hissed, turning too slowly, giving him an opening. He activated his energy knife and used it to cut a narrow channel in the rock wall, creating a temporary barrier. The creature snarled and eventually retreated into the shadows. Ethan exhaled, his heart pounding, but a small grin appeared on his face. He had survived the first real test. The canyon led to a series of puzzle walls, etched with alien symbols, sliding platforms with shifting energy barriers, and pressure plates that triggered traps if stepped on incorrectly. Ethan studied each puzzle carefully. He didn't panic. He applied logic, intuition, and a bit of luck, pressing the correct sequence of symbols and timing his steps perfectly across the energy barriers. Hours passed. Sweat ran down his forehead. His muscles ached, but he pressed on. With each challenge he overcame, he felt a strange mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. By the time he reached the final section of the canyon, the sky above had turned a deep, starry black. Lyra appeared at the far end, her expression softer than before. "Impressive," she said. "I did not expect you to reach this point. Most fail before even completing the first stage." Ethan looked back at the treacherous canyon, its obstacles and creatures now behind him. "Humans like a challenge," he said simply, shrugging. "We don't give up easily." Lyra studied him, her golden eyes reflecting the starlight. "Perhaps," she said slowly, "perhaps humans are different than I believed. But the trial has only begun. Night is long and the second stage is far more dangerous. Few survive even one encounter there." Ethan nodded. His body was tired, but his spirit burned brighter than ever. "Then I guess I'll see what makes it dangerous," he said. Lyra didn't respond immediately. She only gestured for him to follow, leading him toward the second stage, a dense alien forest that seemed alive. Trees with glowing leaves stretched high, their roots twisting like serpents across the forest floor. Strange sounds echoed from the shadows, some melodic, some threatening. "This forest tests perception," Lyra explained. "It is easy to get lost, and many who enter do not find their way out. Illusions and traps lie everywhere. You will need more than strength. Here you will need insight, courage, and the ability to see through deception." Ethan stepped carefully, scanning the surroundings. Shadows shifted oddly, and lights flickered in patterns that seemed to taunt him. He noticed a faint path, almost invisible to the untrained eye, and followed it cautiously. Suddenly, a low hum vibrated through the ground. He looked up to see floating energy spheres forming patterns above him, moving like they had minds of their own. The spheres shot beams of light toward him, each beam capable of burning through rock. Ethan rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding the first attack. He realized he needed to understand the pattern of the beams. Observing closely, he saw a rhythm, a pulse in the energy sphere's movement. Timing his steps carefully, he darted between the beams, feeling the heat brush past him. Hours seemed to blur as Ethan navigated the forest. He faced illusions of collapsing bridges, phantom creatures, and misleading paths. At one point, he found himself in a clearing where a massive creature rose from the ground, its body shimmering with energy. Its eyes glowed, staring directly at him as if it could read his mind. Ethan's training kicked in. He remained calm, breathing slowly, and noticed a small fissure at the creature's side. Using his energy knife with precision, he triggered a device nearby, creating a controlled energy burst that distracted the creature long enough for him to slip past. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he emerged from the forest. His clothes were torn, his body sore, and his energy nearly depleted. Yet a sense of triumph filled him. He had completed the first stage of the trial, something no human, no alien, had ever done before. Lyra was waiting at the exit, her arms folded. She regarded him silently for a long moment. Then she finally spoke. "You survived the impossible. I cannot believe it. Perhaps humans truly are remarkable." Ethan allowed himself a small smile, though he was exhausted. "Remarkable enough to try again?" he asked lightly, already anticipating the next stage. Lyra's eyes narrowed, though the tension had shifted. "There is a second stage tonight," she said. "It is far more dangerous. Most who survive the first stage do not survive the second. Be prepared, human." You may find your limits tested beyond anything you have known. Ethan nodded. The challenge was not over, but he felt a strange confidence. He had faced death, deception, and impossible odds and emerged victorious. Whatever came next, he was ready, as the stars shone brightly overhead. Ethan took a deep breath, looking out at the alien landscape stretching endlessly before him. He knew this night would change everything about him, about the aliens, and about the very notion of what a human could achieve. And somewhere deep in the shadows, Lyra whispered to herself, almost in awe, no one should have done this. But the human, he did it. The first trial had tested Ethan in ways he had never imagined, yet the human spirit thrived on challenges. By the time he emerged from the alien forest, exhaustion weighed heavily on his body, but his mind buzzed with determination. Lyra waited at the forest's edge, her golden eyes reflecting a mixture of astonishment and concern. "You survived the forest?" she said quietly, her voice almost reverent. "Few beings, even of my species, have ever done that. But the second stage, it is unlike anything you have faced so far. It is far more dangerous, unpredictable, and exhausting." Ethan wiped the sweat from his brow and straightened. "Then I'll face it. Humans don't quit after one victory." Lyra's lips twitched, but she said nothing more. She led him across a stretch of rocky terrain toward the second stage, a sprawling canyon filled with towers of jagged crystal, pools of glowing liquid, and high winds that cut across the cliffs like sharp blades. The entire area shimmered with a strange energy, and Ethan could feel it vibrating through his body even before he stepped closer. "The second stage tests adaptability," Lyra explained. "You must adjust to everything: energy fluctuations, environmental hazards, and creatures that learn from your every move. Few survive this stage even once, and no one has ever attempted it twice." Ethan glanced at her, the excitement in his chest growing. "Then maybe I'll be the first." Lyra gave him a sharp look, warning without words. The first obstacle appeared almost immediately, a series of narrow crystal bridges suspended over glowing pits of liquid energy. The bridges shifted without warning, some crumbling beneath weight, others swinging violently in the gusts of wind. Ethan studied them carefully. One misstep could mean a fall into the unknown depths below. He moved forward cautiously, each step deliberate. When a bridge tilted dangerously, he leapt to the next one just in time, using his energy knife to hook onto a crystal spike and steady himself. The wind roared in his ears, but he ignored it. Focusing entirely on movement and timing, halfway across, he spotted a predator, long, sinuous, and covered in reflective scales that blended perfectly with the crystals. It hissed, slithering along the edge of the bridge, ready to strike. Ethan froze for a fraction of a second, analyzing the creature. He could not simply outrun it. The wind would knock him off balance, and the bridges were unstable. Instead, he improvised. He threw a small rock toward a distant bridge, causing it to collapse and create a diversion. The predator lunged toward the noise, and Ethan slipped past it, sliding down a narrow channel in the crystal wall. He landed safely on a lower bridge, his heart pounding but a grin forming on his face. The first part of this stage had been survived, yet the canyon had more in store. As he continued, the energy in the air grew denser, and strange glowing glyphs appeared on the walls. They shifted constantly, creating illusions of walls, floors, and pathways that did not exist. One wrong step could lead to a deadly fall or trap. Ethan relied on his instincts. He remembered patterns he had seen in simulations back on his home planet, and quickly realized that the glyphs followed a pulse, almost like a heartbeat. Timing his moves with the rhythm, he navigated the shifting paths, avoiding deadly pitfalls. Hours passed as he moved deeper into the canyon. Fatigue began to set in, his muscles aching, and his breathing labored. Yet something inside him refused to give up. Every obstacle he overcame strengthened his resolve. Then, without warning, the ground beneath him cracked and shifted, dropping him into a chamber below. The room was enormous, with walls that glowed faintly with alien symbols. At the center floated a sphere of pure energy, radiating heat and light. Ethan realized this was the true test of the second stage. The energy sphere reacted to thought and intention. It It could shift the chamber, create barriers, and even project illusions designed to confuse the mind. Ethan stepped forward cautiously, observing the sphere. Every move he made was reflected in the energy around him, and traps formed with every hesitation. He took a deep breath and relied on clarity of mind, focusing on the pattern rather than the chaos. Slowly he advanced, dodging energy pulses, moving platforms, and walls that appeared suddenly. The chamber seemed endless. Hours blended into one another, and the energy sphere grew more erratic, as if it were aware of Ethan's determination. At one point, it created an illusion of a deep chasm between him and the exit. Ethan nearly panicked, but he caught a glimmer of reality's small differences in the light revealed the illusion. He jumped across safely, narrowly avoiding a deadly fall. Finally, as the first rays of a distant moon pierced the chamber, Ethan reached the exit. He collapsed to his knees for a moment, catching his breath and feeling the ache of every muscle in his body. He had completed the second stage, something no alien, and certainly no human, had ever survived twice. Lyra was waiting outside the chamber. Her expression was unreadable, but the tension in her posture revealed her astonishment. I cannot believe it, she admitted. No one has ever done this twice. The strain alone would break most beings. You are extraordinary. Ethan stood slowly, brushing himself off. I told you, he said with a tired smile. Humans don't quit easily. Lyra shook her head, though a faint smile touched her lips. Extraordinary, yes. Reckless, perhaps. The third stage. It may kill you. Few who survive the second stage even attempt the third. Even those who do are never seen again. Ethan felt a thrill at her warning. Then I guess I'll have to see for myself. Lyra's eyes softened, and for the first time, she seemed to respect him not just as a human, but as someone who could push limits beyond any expectation. I will follow closely, she said. Do not underestimate this stage. It is unlike anything you have faced. Even your ingenuity may not be enough. The third stage began in a valley filled with towering, jagged spires of rock, glowing rivers of energy, constant storms that swept across the landscape. The wind was fierce, carrying sharp particles that cut through even the toughest armor. Ethan had to balance carefully, moving from spire to spire, avoiding the storms while watching for the creatures that lurked in the shadows. Some of the creatures were small and fast, darting like shadows, while others were massive and terrifying. With glowing eyes and claws that could pierce metal, Ethan used every skill he had: quick reflexes, careful observation, and improvised tools to navigate the terrain. He set small traps to distract predators, used reflective surfaces to mislead creatures, and relied on his energy knife for protection. Hours passed and exhaustion pressed heavily on him. His movements were slower, and his mind began to feel the strain of constant vigilance. But every time he faltered, he reminded himself of the first two stages of his own perseverance, and of the determination that had carried him this far. At one point, he found himself facing a massive chasm, wider than any he had crossed before. The storm raged across it, and the platforms that might have helped were swept away. Ethan considered his options carefully. He could not jump across, it was too far. He could not climb down, the walls were slick and unstable. Then he remembered a technique from his training. It's adapted for the alien environment. Using a combination of tethering devices, he created a makeshift bridge from energy and rope, swinging across the chasm with careful timing. The wind almost knocked him off, but his focus and balance kept him safe. On the other side, he paused, breathing heavily. But a sense of accomplishment surged through him. Lyra had been following at a distance, ensuring he did not step into fatal danger. She watched silently, her awe growing. Ethan was not just surviving. He was excelling where no one else could. His human ingenuity, courage, and sheer will were rewriting what the aliens believed was possible. Finally, as dawn broke over the jagged valley, Ethan reached a plateau where the energy storm ceased, and the creatures of the night had retreated. He stood there, battered, exhausted, and covered in cuts and bruises, yet triumphant. He had completed the second stage of the trial, twice the impossible. Lyra approached him slowly. her golden eyes filled with a rare mixture of respect and concern. "You have done what no one else could," she said softly. "You survived the second stage. And yet, you speak of the third. It may not spare you, human. Even now, your body and mind are pushed to their limits." Ethan looked out over the valley, the alien sun casting long shadows across the jagged landscape. "Limits exist to be tested," he said firmly. "I cannot stop now. If humans are to be remembered, if we are to show our strength, then I must see this through." Lyra remained silent for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Very well," she said. "We will prepare for the third stage. It will be unlike anything you have faced tonight. The impossible awaits. And yet, somehow I feel you may surpass even that." Ethan smiled, exhaustion giving way to anticipation. The night had already tested him beyond imagination, yet his spirit burned brighter than ever. Whatever came next, he was ready. The challenge was far from over, and the third stage awaited more dangerous, more demanding, and more extraordinary than anything he had ever known. And somewhere deep in the alien shadows, creatures and beings alike whispered in awe, the human. He might just be unstoppable. The final stage of the trial awaited Ethan in a valley unlike anything he had ever seen. Jagged spires of rock jutted toward the sky, glowing rivers of energy crisscrossed the ground, and storms of lightning and wind roared continuously, shaking the terrain with unrelenting force. The very air seemed alive, charged with energy that made his skin tingle and his muscles ache. This stage was meant to test every limit: strength, speed, intellect, courage, and endurance, and Ethan felt the weight of the challenge pressing against him from the moment he set foot in the valley. Lyra walked beside him, her golden eyes scanning the environment with a wary intensity. "This stage has ended the careers of many skilled warriors," she said quietly. "Most do not survive at once. Few even survive halfway. And yet you are here. Again, it may kill you, Ethan." Ethan took a deep breath, feeling the cool energy of the valley mix with his own adrenaline. "Then I'll do what humans do best," he said with a faint grin. "Adapt and keep going." The first obstacle appeared almost immediately, a massive chasm with no visible bridge. Across it, glowing platforms hovered in midair, shifting erratically with the wind and lightning strikes. One misstep could send him plummeting into the crackling energy below. Ethan studied the platforms. He could see their patterns, the faint rhythm in which they rose and fell, the way the wind affected their sway. Timing his movements perfectly, he leaped from platform to platform, feeling the wind buffet him. The lightning arced dangerously close, yet somehow avoiding disaster with precision and focus. Halfway across, a creature emerged from the shadows, sleek and agile, its body glowing faintly with the same energy that coursed through the valley. It hissed, eyes fixed on him, moving with terrifying speed. Ethan didn't panic. He observed its patterns, noticing that it anticipated direct movements. Using a sudden change of direction, he leaped to a nearby spire, momentarily confusing the predator. Then, he triggered a small energy pulse from his device. Creating a temporary barrier that forced the creature to retreat, Ethan exhaled sharply, adrenaline surging through him. He had survived the first encounter. Yet the trial was only beginning. The next challenge came in the form of a narrow canyon filled with shifting walls and floors, each moving unpredictably, as if alive. The walls were lined with alien symbols that pulsed and shifted, creating illusions of pathways that didn't exist. One false step could mean death. Ethan's mind raced. He had faced puzzles before, but this one seemed to anticipate him, changing constantly. He slowed, observing the rhythm of the symbols and the movement of the walls. Step by step, he navigated the canyon, timing his movements with care. When the floor beneath him suddenly tilted, he jumped to a stable section and barely avoided a deadly fall into a glowing river of energy. Hours passed. The wind roared in his ears, energy arcs struck dangerously close, and creatures lurked in shadows, but Ethan refused to stop. His body screamed with fatigue, his muscles burned, and his mind teetered on exhaustion, yet he pressed forward. He relied on his human instinct, his quick thinking, and the perseverance that had carried him through the first two stages. Finally, he reached a plateau where the energy seemed to pulse with greater intensity. At the center of the plateau hovered a massive sphere of pure energy, spinning slowly yet radiating immense power. This was the final test, the culmination of the entire trial. The sphere reacted to thought, movement, and intent. Any wrong action could trigger deadly consequences. Ethan approached carefully. He could feel the power of the sphere pressing against his senses. Shadows and illusions formed around him, creating phantom obstacles, false pathways, and even phantom creatures. He felt fear, but not panic. Fear, he realized, was a tool. It sharpened his focus and forced him to move with clarity. He noticed a pattern in the sphere's rotations. Each pulse of energy followed a rhythm, and each illusion seemed to dissipate slightly when he moved in time with that rhythm. Step by step, he advanced, dodging energy arcs, passing through illusions, and reacting to threats with precision. At one point, the sphere projected a massive phantom creature, towering over him, its glowing eyes fixed on him. Ethan's heart pounded, but he did not hesitate. He observed carefully, noticing that the creature moved predictably, repeating its attack patterns. Using a combination of timing and agility, he leaped and dodged. Finally passing the illusion safely, the valley itself seemed to push back. Spires swayed violently, rivers of energy surged unpredictably, and wind threatened to throw him off balance. Yet, with every obstacle, Ethan adapted. He used his energy knife to stabilize himself, created makeshift bridges across unstable terrain, and employed every ounce of strength and mental acuity he possessed. Hours blurred. The storms above intensified. Yet Ethan's determination only grew stronger. He could feel the exhaustion gnawing at him, his body crying out for rest. Yet his mind refused to yield. He remembered the first stage, the forest, and how he had overcome impossible odds. He remembered the second stage, the canyon, and how he had defied expectations. And now, in this final trial, he relied on that same human resilience. At the edge of the plateau, he faced one final challenge, chasm wider than anything he had crossed before. With the energy sphere spinning between him and the exit, the wind howled, the energy surged, and the floating platforms were almost impossible to time. Ethan studied the patterns, breathing deeply to calm his mind. He leapt from one platform to the next, the gap seeming endless beneath him. One false move, and it would be fatal. Midway across, a massive predator emerged from the chasm, its claws glinting dangerously in the energy light. It lunged at him, and for a split second Ethan froze. Then, instincts took over. He twisted in midair, using a platform as leverage, and activated a small device from his belt that released a blinding flash of light. The predator recoiled, giving him the opening to leap safely to the next platform. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he reached the far side of the chasm. He collapsed to his knees, breathing heavily, heart pounding, and body trembling. He had survived the third stage, the final and most dangerous trial. No being alien or human had ever done this before. Lyra approached slowly, her expression a mixture of awe, disbelief, and admiration. I cannot believe it, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. No one has ever done this. Not once, not twice, and now, 3 times in one night. You are extraordinary, Ethan. Ethan struggled to his feet, feeling every ache and bruise in his body, yet a smile broke across his face. I told you humans like challenges, he said, exhaustion giving way to triumph. We don't stop at what others say is impossible. Lyra studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly, a faint smile of respect finally appearing. You have changed what we believed possible, she said softly. Humans, you are more than we ever imagined. As the storm subsided, and the first light of dawn touched the jagged valley, Ethan stood tall despite the exhaustion. Around him, the alien beings who had watched in silence began to murmur in astonishment. The impossible had been done not once, not twice, but 3 times. And it had been done by a human. Lyra walked beside him, placing a hand lightly on his shoulder. You have proven something tonight, she said, not just to us, but to yourself. Humans are capable of feats we thought beyond your reach. Your courage, your ingenuity. It is remarkable. Ethan looked out over the valley, the glowing rivers and jagged spires stretching endlessly before him. He had faced death, deception, illusions, and unimaginable challenges, yet he had emerged victorious. "I only did what I had to do," he said simply. "I kept moving forward. It's what humans do." Lyra smiled, a rare warmth in her expression. "Perhaps it is time our people reconsider their assumptions about humans," she said. "You have set a standard that will be remembered for generations. Tonight, you are a legend." Ethan's gaze lifted to the sky where the alien moon still shone softly above. The night had tested him beyond imagination. But it had also shown him the limitless potential of determination, courage, and human ingenuity. He felt a sense of quiet pride, not just for himself, but for all humans, whose strength and perseverance had carried him this far. Lyra remained silent beside him for a moment, then spoke, almost reverently. "No one should have done this. But you did it. 3 times, in one night. The impossible has become reality because of you." Ethan smiled, exhaustion and triumph mingling. "Then maybe the impossible isn't impossible after all," he said. As the dawn light bathed the valley, aliens and humans alike understood that a new respect had been earned. Ethan's feats would be told in stories, celebrated for generations. The limits they had assumed for humans had been shattered, and a new era of possibility had begun. And somewhere in the shadows, creatures and beings alike whispered almost in awe, "The human. He had done what no one else could. 3 times in one night." Ethan finally sank to the ground, breathing deeply, every muscle aching, yet a smile on his face. He had faced the impossible, twice defied death, and triumphed over challenges no one believed could be overcome. Tonight he had proven the strength, ingenuity, and unbreakable spirit of humanity.